A Live Woman of Proven Fertility is the 5th episode of the 4th season of 2.5 Men. This is directed by Gary Halvorson, and as always there will be spoilers from now as I go through the episode and share some thoughts. And it's a really solid episode, I have no complaints. It worked really well. I don't think I have any quotes to share with this one. Sometimes I will have favourite quotes. That's not the case here, but I still enjoyed it. It starts off in the kitchen. Charlie asks Alan if he wants to go out to dinner. Alan says that he hasn't got the money for it, and eventually he agrees to go, and he wants a say in the restaurant they go to, and Charlie ends up treating him like a date, as if he's trying to seduce him. It was really uncomfortable. It really was really awkward. And Judith then comes over to collect Jake, and Judith tells Alan that she's getting married to Herb Melnick. And as soon as the door is shut, Charlie counts Alan in, and Alan does the no more alimony dance. So Alan's pretty happy about this. And we then cut to after they've gone out to dinner, they're coming back in the house. Alan is still doing his no more alimony dance, and Jake is in the house. And it turns out Rose let him in, which means that Rose was in the house. And basically, Charlie changed the locks, but he didn't change the locksmith. And we learn that Jake ran away because he doesn't want Judith to get married to Herb Melnick. And I think this episode does a really good job of showing what it can feel like to be Jake in this situation, to be the child of a parent who's getting married. And it's not so much that he didn't want Herb to replace Alan. It just, I guess he felt like he was being forced to love somebody, forced to have somebody as his stepfather, when he maybe wasn't ready to do that. And Alan phoned Judith, of course, to tell her Jake was there because he'd ran away. And I think she said the right thing in saying that they wouldn't get married until Jake had had time to adjust, which again I thought was a really sensible approach and definitely a wise way to take things. Charlie and Alan, however, are maybe not so wise in their approach. We're in the car taking Jake back home, and basically they're paying him. They're going to give him money to love Herb Melnick, and they end up telling Herb this, and I think it's a good idea that Judith didn't find out that they're bribing Jake. I think the episode would have gone in a different direction, but Herb found this out and actually ended up admitting that he's not ready to be a stepfather. And I think the big takeaway here is that it's best to not rush into this wedding, because neither Jake nor Herb are ready for it. And I think that that's definitely something that, if you're Judith in this situation, is worth bearing in mind. That you might love your partner, but they might not be ready to take on the responsibility of your child. Doesn't mean they won't, but sometimes people need to go at a different pace. So there are some really great takeaways from this episode. And obviously Alan wants Herb to get married as quickly as possible so he has no more alimony. So he and Charlie invite Herb out to drink. They're at the bar, and then they're back at Charlie's house, and Herb, who doesn't usually drink, is very drunk on the deck dancing with some strippers. And basically this is his bachelor party, very last minute bachelor party, and they film him doing this, dancing with the strippers, to bribe him if he backs out of the wedding, which is not great, not very admirable, but funny in the moment, I guess. And they end up taking him back home and dropping him and running on the doorstep when Judith answers. And we learn that actually they'd recorded it on Herb's phone by mistake, and Judith sees the video. I would have liked a little bit more of the aftermath for that in this episode, but it was still pretty entertaining. And the last thing we see is Rose helping the strippers, getting them something to drink, and generally pretending like she lives there, which was not a bad way to end things. I think spending time with Herb in the bar and then at Charlie's was a really nice way to really introduce us to the character a little bit more. If they're getting married, he's going to be around for a long time, so it makes sense that we get to know him a little better and a little bit of his backstory. So I think that worked really well. It was a really good idea. And then throw in the fact that I think they did a great job at showing that different people can have different emotions to this kind of situation. Jake and Herb are both not ready yet to take that next step. I think it did a really good job of highlighting that. So it may not be the funniest episode, and as I said, there are no specific quotes that I want to mention, but I still think it's a really solid episode. I think they did a great job with it. I think it's a subject that a lot of people will be able to relate to or will benefit from. And ultimately, I thought A Live Woman of Proven Fertility was not a bad episode at all.